Thank you, Jeffrey. We're going to listen to a couple more. We're going to take about a 5-minute break so you can get some snacks, and I can talk to the people who just showed up and get them ready to do the second half with us. Next writer that's coming up has been very helpful to our organization. In the past, we've booked music here, and he's made the connections, and he's volunteered to help read for the judges and all kinds of cool stuff. And he's even put us in his newsletter without us even asking. Terry Dawson, thank you.
I want to thank Tony. He's a great part of our community to provide these things, and it's not always with reward, I'm sure, but thank you for your faithfulness. We really appreciate that. I'm mindful today that while we sit here reading, that there are those who may be torn from what their lifestyle has been in America, and I find that chilling, and so I was glad for that opening poem, because I could get that anger out early so that I can read something here that it addresses a serious subject, but it tries to add the light touch to it. And it's from a novel I just finished, and it's a chapter that seems most appropriate. It begins with an epigraph by Pablo Neruda. Today, our bodies become vast. They grow to the edge of the world, the road to Chile. Martyrdom always remained on the table. The nuns had told us as much. His elementary school teachers often alluded to young people like St. Teresa of the Little Flower, a mere girl who'd made the supreme sacrifice for her faith. You see, they had a point to make. Catholics were under siege and must be prepared to die at any time. Not till after watching Demetrius and the Gladiators on the Saturday night movie when he was 7 did Kieran Winslow feel ready to commit. Alone in his room, saying his prayers, he finally professed his willingness to fight to the death for Jesus in a Roman Colosseum. The opportunity never presented itself. Still, Kieran began to suspect in his late 30s, long after he abandoned his Catholic roots, that God prepared at long last to cash in on the deal. Kill the lights. What? You're kidding, but we won't be able to do it. Reach for the bridge. We can going to be shot. Do it, hombre. The first time Kieran thought he might die, he was driving. He approached a bridge crossing the Lempa River in El Salvador in the early morning hours before the sun came up. And he rented a van in the capital and filled it with a delegation from the San Francisco Bay Area, comprised largely of members of the church he served. Their destination, the Honduran border. There, the group planned to escort dozens of refugees returning to the homeland that was theirs, that they had fled to repatriate the campo, or countryside, of Chalatenango, Chile for short. Their presence, and the presence of all these internationales, would ostensibly better ensure the safe re-entry of these folks. Yet safe was the last thing Karen felt as the delegation made their way into this unknown territory, now in total darkness. The bridge extended over a dam. The Salvadoran military recognized it as a potential target for rebel forces, one the guerrillas could destroy by plane at night were it at all lit. This would then imperil the soldiers stationed at the checkpoint there and take out a supply route and an energy source in the bargain. Vehicles were therefore expected to turn off their lights when they came to this crossing. Who knew? Karen's Salvadoran native friend riding shotgun apparently did. Guajardo had traveled this road countless times. He had failed to inform Karen of the protocol. That is, until their van nearly ran down 4 teenage soldiers with rifles trained at Karen's head. Guardo commenced yelling again and again. Karen questioned his vehement advice. Alta, Alta, stop, stop. But I can't see where I am. Just do what he says, Karen. A chorus from the back of the van chimed in. Before the van even came to a complete standstill, Guardo had jumped out of his passenger seat. His panicked demeanor changed immediately. In seconds, he joked with the menacing-looking uniformed men, still slow to lower their rifles and eyeing those in the van suspiciously. Guardo removed the soft pack in his rolled-up shirt sleeves and began knocking out cigarettes to distribute, following up with an offered flick of his bic. He engaged in Spanish so muy rápido Karen hadn't a chance of following along. Back in the States, his friend never smoked. No sooner had they landed in San Salvador Airport than he purchased a couple cartons of Kents and lit up on the spot. Guardo, typically as placid as they came, grew perceptibly edgier when the delegation entered Central America. In the days that followed, Guardo's status as a recognized activist became clear. In the capital, when the group participated in a demonstration honoring slain Archbishop Romero, he assumed a role as one of the megaphone armed leaders, guiding all in a chant of no sitio, no paz. Folks in the resettled refugee camps recognized Guardo on sight. Even the UN personnel at the adorned border greeted him with pats on the back when the delegation arrived. He's got to be on some government hit list, Karen figured. By journey's end, the Presbyterian minister would have a much better appreciation of how it was his friend so easily resumed his filthy habit. What's going on, Kieran? Asked the others in the van, now drawn together as if by magnetic force, leaning over the front seat. The question made the minister feel a bit like Robin Hood. That is, on those occasions when the English outlaws' band of merry men looked to him for direction as to their next move in outwitting the Sheriff of Nottingham. Karen's band, all women, looked anything but merry. The fact that he just nearly rendered them all collateral damage in the regional conflict here didn't help. Images of the three raped and slain Marino sisters and their lay missionary colleague found at the side of the road only a few miles from the crossing swelled in all their minds. Though pastor to most of those in the group for only about a year, to say he knew these women well would be misleading. Karen had made his travel plans clear to his congregation and extended an invitation for those interested in joining him. In the end, 4 came forward. Margaret, a single-parent secretary Karen had met only once before. He showed up at the front door of her temporary apartment to deliver a deacon's care package of household items. The recent Oakland firestorm had, over the previous weekend, consumed her beautiful arts and crafts home. She and her daughter Jan, back from college for spring break, were the first to volunteer. Another young woman, Alice, returned from grad school to look for a job, showed up in Karen's office next. I know we've never met, she said, but I'd love to sign up if it's not too late. Sheila, a legal aide and head of the church mission committee, had an obvious social justice leanings that longed to extend beyond the San Francisco suburbs. She was last to commit. I'm not sure, but it'll be all right. Karen tried to reassure those in the back of the van as he literally struggled to keep his own teeth from chattering. Looks like Guardo has some kind of a plan. All knew their mission involved a certain amount of risk. The Salvadoran government clearly did not want folks like them accompanying those they considered rebel sympathizers. The delegation had concocted a cover story, namely that they were a church group, partly true, headed for La Palma to purchase the artisany with which that town had become associated, something that turned out to be true. Theirs was a sin of omission. They simply left out the part about helping refugees return to defiantly reoccupied land the government had violently taken from them a decade earlier. After about 15 minutes, though it seemed much longer, Guardo hopped back into the van as quickly as he hopped out. Again, he proceeded to bark orders. Go, go, he demanded, a cigarette bobbing beneath his thin, dark, retrospective mustache. Ahora, before they change their minds. Instinctively, Karen switched on the headlights before turning the ignition. Lights off! The entire delegation erupted in unison. Oops, Karen apologized. As the van rolled darkly past the soldiers, Rhea, the UC Berkeley doctoral student co-leading the group, relaxed enough to make a joke. As the only woman not a member of Kieran's church or any religious body for that matter, and gay to boot, she felt a bit the odd man out. What did you do, Guardo? She asked, going for a jab at her co-leader. Tell him Kieran was a priest to get us through? Priest, que lástima, no, Guardo said, exhaling a cloud of smoke and draping his arm across the front seat to look over his shoulder at Rhea and the other woman. I told him he was a goddamn bishop. The band of now more merry folk laughed. And with a nod from Guardo, Karen finally allowed the band to open its bright eyes to show the way. Kieran's sudden consecration to bishop made him think of Sister Karina, his aunt. She never got behind the wheel of a car without making the sign of the cross and uttering a brief prayer just before she took off at breakneck speed. He first witnessed this while sitting in the back seat of his Uncle Paul's new pink Thunderbird convertible. As the car lunged forward, the nun's black veil flew up to cover the head of his uncle in the passenger bucket seat. It knocked his Salem menthol hot ash and all into his lap, so that he commenced to blindly dance in his seat to the light of Kieran and his brother. What was that prayer? Karen said to himself as the sun began to rise. But then blurted out aloud, Our Lady, Queen of the Highways, guide and protect us. Well, that's random, remarked Rhea. You Presbyterians pray to la Virgin? Asked Guajardo. This one does today, quipped Karen. I figure we need all the help we can get. Claro, hermano, chuckled Guardo. That's the truth. Dietrich Bonhoeffer, of all people, elbowed his way next into Kieran's thoughts. The minister remembered how the German theologian executed for his involvement in a plot to assassinate Adolf Hitler once offered words that proved prophetic. When a group of SS officers entered the local Hofbrau, where he and his fellow resistors dined, two of them jumped up to leave in protest. Bonhoeffer reached out and pulled his colleagues back down and said, Be assured, we're going to die, but not today, not for this. Not today, Kieran repeated gratefully under his breath, not for this. But the day was not over. It and the road to Chile had just begun.